Here's an overview for the session. I'm going to walk through a brief presentation on GuiXT and the challenges our products solve. Then I'll go over some success stories, and then we'll get into the details of how GuiXT works. Tony will demonstrate two plant maintenance applications from two of our customers and a purchase order example as well that shows more detail on the offline architecture. Then we're going to take questions and wrap it up. We're also recording this webinar, so if someone in your organization was not able to join, they can do it later. And also, if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to submit them in the questions panel, and we'll get them answered at the end of the session. If we run out of time, we'll be sure to follow up with you. Okay, so let's get started. But before we get into the presentation, we wanted to find out more about you, the attendees of the webinar, so that we can tailor the presentation to the audience. So please answer this poll question for us. Oh, I have to, what is your role in the organization? And let me open up the poll. Okay, so if you could go ahead and select one of these for us. And we'll give you a couple seconds here to just choose what your role is in the organization. Okay, we're getting quite a bit of results here. Okay. All right, and one other question for you. We also wanted to find out what mobile devices you are going to use. Okay, sorry. So that one didn't come through. Okay, so let's just go back to the presentation now. All right. So just to go over some of the issues and challenges that we see today in using SAP and working in an offline mode. Here's a typical plant maintenance example in just simple workflow on an operator in a manufacturing plant. Needs to create a work order. Today, it's typically done in the plant, but he has to write issues down on paper. And then once he's back in the office, the data needs to be entered into SAP in order to start the work order process. Then in the next step of the process, the supervisor would receive the work order, again, probably while he's at his desk, and then assigns it to a repair technician. And then the third step in the process, the repair technician gets the assigned work order in the morning from his office, and then goes out on the job to perform the work to fix the issue. But again, needs to write things down on paper and then provides the information back to the clerk once he's back in the office, where a clerk has to enter in the data. Okay, so with our solution, the process steps can be eliminated and streamlined. In addition, having access to SAP data on the mobile device while you're in a disconnected mode, where there's no network connectivity, basically extends the information in the business process for anytime, anywhere access. So in the first step of the process, with an operator using a Windows mobile device, he can fill out the information directly on his device, capturing the data on the spot, and then when he's back in the network connected area, he can upload the data back to SAP. And the supervisor can now make the assignments from his smartphone. And then the next step in the process, you can go to a repair technician. The repair technician would get the assigned work orders. Again, working in an offline mode, maybe on his ruggedized laptop, checks inventory for parts. He can input materials used and the time spent. And then once he's back in a network-connected area, the data is uploaded to SAP. So there's no additional data entry person involved. No paper with notes that can be lost or misread, and there's no travel and time delay to get the relevant information into SAP. So as you can see, GuiXT enables your field technicians to execute their tasks more efficiently. They have their needed documents digitally available on their mobile device. It eliminates the need for any paper documents. Also, the streamlined and simplified transaction logic minimizes the number of screens. And also, with our technology, you can change the terminology to fit your business employees. Again, eliminates confusion about what data to enter and reduces errors. So here are the of our product directly on the user's device and can be easily customized for your business. Complicated multi-screen transactions that can be consolidated into one or more useful screens, and it basically is fit into a smaller real estate, into a smaller device. So only the essential fields are displayed. Keystrokes are minimized, and this also improves the communication bandwidth with simplifying the information. Again, there is an SQL-like database that resides on the device, and the synchronization and the connection to SAP, it's basically on an as-needed basis. So as soon as the device moves into a network-connected area, the user can decide when and what to download or upload to the corporate system. So basically it means that rather than having to re-enter data, orders and transactions can be seamlessly processed. And it makes efficient use of communication bandwidth by pushing most of the processing to the server side. Also, you'll notice that only the changed and selected data can be synced. Another benefit with our product is there's no J2EE, no third-party application server or SOAP-based web services development required. The infrastructure is a lot smaller than what you'll find with other vendors. So there's less IT support. And we have the GuiXT Unified User Interface Framework that spans not only mobile platforms but also desktop platforms. So the next slide here, we'll get into the case study, and then Tony will show a demo specifically with this customer. So this is a Danish conglomerate. They have the largest shipping container company and also oil rig drilling operation. Now the project that we worked on was specifically for their offshore oil rig operation. These oil rigs, they didn't have landline or internet connection, so they had to go with their satellite communications, and often these oil rigs, they shift based on loads. So during these times, they're not in sync. They had to do plant maintenance on paper, and then they had to give it to an operator to enter later on. This is an actual picture of the rig. Some are stationary, and some have dynamic positioning and hydraulic propellers that move around. So it's during these times that they really need an offline solution. So we were able to minimize the network traffic by uploading during off hours. It improved operational costs because they were able to continue their work even in an offline mode. And they also liked the fact that they had a unified user interface, both on whether they're on land or at sea. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it on to Tony and have him show the actual application.
Thank you, Dee Dee. So the first offline demo workflow is going to start with a Launchpad that will consist of work orders and notifications, lookup equipment, and the ability to synchronize with SAP. Now this customer example is interesting because it's using RFI scan tags on all their equipment. And the first step in their work order process here is to pull up the work order list. Once they've pulled up the work order list, they can now look at the work order details. So they're going to look at work order number 818040. And so now they can go through their process of creating notifications where they can enter in the functional location information, description information, equipment information, and any other manufacturing name and serial number equipment information that's pertinent. And they move through their process, and they go to their work order list details. Here they're able to pull up an object list and select a particular device that they're interested in. In this particular use case, it's a notebook. And now they can search by equipment description. And now they can look and get the equipment list details and create a notification on the notebook by adding descriptions to the actions, such as, testing. So here we'll search. Pull up the details. Create a notification. And now I can update the object group details. So I'll save this. And let's select gas facilities. And put in some details around it, like a power pack. And once we've saved this, we can now take a look at the damage group list and take a look at the fact that there's a defective mouse. And we can save this notification and go back and display the notification details. And just see if there are any consequences or details around this notification. So once I've looked at the details, I can go back to the main menu. If at any point I want to understand a little bit more about how to navigate or use the system for any reason, I can pull up help. And so here we've created some help notes so that they could remember their process. And now we'll go and actually synchronize the records with the system. And upload the notification. And I'll turn the controls back over to Dee Dee.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Change presenter, back to you. Okay. So just to recap, this is the actual process flow that was done for this customer. You can see it's quite complex. And as Tony mentioned, we went through notifications, work orders. Basically, we can do, the navigation can be done in any number of ways because we, depending on how the user wants it, since we don't have any connection to SAP. Okay, and the transactions that were optimized you see listed below. And again, the application works with both the stylus and keypad because they thought the workers might lose the stylus, so we were able to use the keypad as well. Okay, so the next case study that we're going to go over is from one of the largest distillers of alcoholic beverages in the world. And some of their issues that they had were low acceptance, user acceptance rates using SAP Plant Management. Navigation to multiple transactions was difficult. To find the corresponding data for creating notifications and work orders. There was redundant data entry. There were complex screens, leading to a higher error rate. So they also the training. There was lots of training required, and it was basically had low productivity rates. So we were able to simplify screens on scan guns. It made it easy for them to walk around the plant and report on faults in order to do these compliance checks. And it eliminated paper as well with the user-friendly solution and resulted in quality of production. Okay, so here's the actual paper that they would have to use and walk around the plant. They would have to print this out. They'd walk around to each one of these equipments here on the left-hand side, and then they have to look for signs of leakage and check it. Listen for any excessive or unusual noise when running, right, on each of these pieces of equipment. And then at the end of the day, they would have to type it into the SAP system or provide it back to a clerk who would enter in the data. So we were able to optimize these transactions, and I'll turn it over to Tony to show you the actual application. Okay.
Thank you, Dee Dee. So the second offline demo workflow will start with a launch pad that will consist of a maintenance request, an asset care capability, and the ability for the technician to go in and enter in details. Now this customer example is using regular barcode scans in their process. And the first step in their process is to download the tasks for asset care, which were being maintained originally on paper. So now they can specify the download criteria and enter in the basic start date information. They can enter in maintenance plan and functional location information. And they can enter in the activity type, like operator asset care. And then they can go through their download process. Once the download is completed, they can start their task for the day. So we'll drill down to asset care and scan equipment that we should be working on. And we'll start our task list. Now what's interesting is the task list actually guides the user through a series of questions to actually ensure that they're following the proper process. So the first question that's presented is, are there any signs of leakage or damage? If yes, they'll be notified. They should raise a notification. If no, we'll go through another series of questions to kind of guide them through their decision tree. So in this case, they're going to say no. And they're presented with a second question. Are there any excessive or unusual noises when running? If yes, raise a notification. So in this case, we will say yes. And now they can go through the process of actually going to the maintenance problem description and changing the priority on it. So they're going to change it from low, and you can see we presented with just some easy radial buttons for them to make that selection. And they're going to raise the priority to medium. And they can even go in and enter into more detail through long text and just say that there's a loud noise when running, so it needs to be replaced. And the last process in their decision tree is a question that will ask them basically if there are any gauges that are showing levels in green. If no, they should raise a notification. So they're going to say yes, and they can complete their process now by confirming their time. So 1.2 actual work. And I will pass the baton back to Dee Dee.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Okay, so the next example that we're going to show you has to do with the procure-to-pay. Now, we showed this back in the mobile tutorial part 1 of the series. This is it shows the breadth of our solutions. So in this case, this is a basic workflow where a user isn't purchasing an item, let's say a computer, needs to create a purchase requisition. Next step in the process, the manager has to approve it. And then the buyer has to check for inventory and convert the purchase requisition to a purchase order. And then when the goods come in, the dock worker can scan the item, and the last step in the process is when an invoice is received, and then it goes to to finance or accounting, who can populate information into a form or into Excel. So we offer all of these touch points, and I could just show you some of the work that we've done just to show the overview and breadth of our products. This was done on a desktop using SAP GUI. We simplified the SAP GUI user interface. Purchase requisition transaction was 7 screens. We brought it down to 1. And we were able to change the labels, add additional help text and tips. The defaults were set to minimize errors. We also added additional RTF and HTML files that are embedded in the screen to aid the user in filling out the information. Okay. The next step in the process is the smartphone tablet user interface. This is for quick approvals. The manager can have access from his smartphone or tablet for anytime, anywhere access. Next step in the process, what we showed before was the web-based or the browser-based user interface, and this is also can be provided through NetWeaver Business Client or NetWeaver portals. The fourth step in the process is when the item comes into the dock. Now the dock worker can use a scan gun or RFID scanner to get all the required information, confirms the goods were received, and then all the information goes back into SAP. And the last step in the process is with the PDF document or Excel spreadsheet can be used as a front end by accounting in order to put the information upload the information into SAP. Okay, so that's the overall example. What we're going to show next is with the purchase order. We're going to show that on a laptop in an offline mode, and we're also going to show the MIGO transaction or the goods receipt also on a laptop in a disconnected mode. So Tony will be showing these two next. So I'll pass control over to Tony. Okay.
Thank you. So the purchase order and goods received offline process flow is going to start with a launchpad menu that will consist of the ability for the user to create and change purchase orders. The user will also be able to create and display good receipts. They will be able to upload purchase orders. They can upload their good receipts. And they can also specify the purchase order download criteria. Now, there's some rules here that we follow. The user can create offline purchase orders to synchronize with SAP, which includes multiple line items. Offline knows when a purchase order is uploaded to SAP and whether to let the user change or just view the purchase order. And any purchase order that is uploaded to SAP cannot be changed, and no material can be added to the purchase order. Users can create as many purchase orders in offline as they want. The purchase order transaction in offline has two sections, a creation and modification of header data and a creation and modification of line item data. For any PO, the user also creates good receipts, but GuiXT offline only lets the user create good receipts for a selected PO if the PO is uploaded to SAP. So the first step in the process, the user will see an offline login screen. On this screen, the user can enter their offline username and password via the GuiXT server that is securely hosted inside the firewall. The next step, the user will see the main launchpad. From this menu, the user can either initiate the purchase order transaction or the goods receipt transaction. So the first step in their process, they'll click on the Create and Change Purchase Order button. From this screen, the user can view the purchase orders created in offline. Every record created will have an offline record number. Once the record is uploaded in SAP, the corresponding SAP document number will be retrieved back in the offline database, and the SAP PO number will show up in the second column in this table. The next action the user will take will be to create a new record. So we choose the Create PO button. And on this screen, the user enters the header PO information for the purchase order. So we'll enter Agency 19 in this example for our sample vendor data. And we'll also use purchase order organization and company code as 1000. The next step in our process will be to hit Save on the toolbar to add the record in the offline PO database. The record gets displayed in the offline data table. Since this record has not been uploaded yet, there is no SAP PO number generated, which shows up in this table. Once we synchronize the data, this number will be displayed in this table's second column. Users can view the data created if they need to modify the data. However, after upload, the user won't be able to do any modifications in the PO numbers displayed in this table. So the user now selects the record in the table by offline highlights the record, and now we can hit the View Change button on this screen. This will display the document generated. So on this screen, the user can view the line items generated for this particular purchase order. If there are no line items in the purchase order yet, the user can create them on the next screen. So the user will click on the Purchase Order Line Items button on the toolbar. And on this screen, the user can either view the line items that exist in the PO, or they can create new ones. They can also choose a line item and navigate to the goods receipt screen, which is the second transaction that the user can execute in offline. The goods receipt transaction is tied to the purchase order, since the company has to create a receipt against any material received from the vendor. However, offline is smart enough that it only navigates the user to goods receipts that they can view and change the screen if the particular line item in the PO has a corresponding receipt generated. So we're clicking the Create Line Item, creating a new purchase order. And we're saving the button to add the record in the line item table. So on this screen, the user sees the record's been added. The first column is the unique ID that ties this line item to the PO selected. The second column is the offline record ID for each line item created. Offline displays only the line items for the selected PO on this table. And once line items are generated, the user can click on the Create Goods Receipt button on the toolbar, which will navigate the user to the PO list of items. Now we can click on one more material in PO and save it. So when we click this, you can see the user is back to the PO list item. They've selected the record desired, and they click on the Create GR button to create a goods receipt against that selected item. But offline is smart enough to know whether the goods receipt should be created or not against a PO. If a PO has not been uploaded to SAP yet, then offline does not let the user create a receipt against the order and line item. So you notice here, it's letting me know on the bottom of the screen that that has not been uploaded yet. So offline expects that PO to be uploaded to SAP to generate the goods receipt. So let's click on the Upload button on the toolbar to upload the offline purchase orders in SAP. So now the user will be presented with the ability for them to enter the username and password. And the user can then click on the Synchronize button to upload the data. So now we're starting up the server. Again, we're inside the firewall, and we're synchronizing the data. And after the upload is complete, the user sees the captured PO number on the purchase order list screen. And there it is. So now we can select the PO uploaded and click on the Create GR button. All right, so this screen is where the user creates the receipt for the selected PO line item. So they're going to enter in quantity, document date, delivery note, and post date. And then they can hit Save on the toolbar to add the document in the goods receipt table in offline. Once the document is saved, the user is returned to the PO list screen, and once the user selects the PO and clicks on the Create GR button again, an add screen is displayed again, but this time to create a receipt for the line item. So the user can now click on Save on the toolbar. And we're going to repeat this thing one more time. This time the Create Receipt screen will default the line item to 0030. And if the user tries to generate a receipt for 0030, offline will complain since there are no 0030 line items created in the selected purchase order. So you see on the bottom of the screen it's saying it's complaining. So now we hit the back on the toolbar to navigate to the purchase order list. And on this screen, the user selects the PO uploaded and clicks on the view change. And this will take the user to the header details of the uploaded PO. But this time, since PO is uploaded, the user will not be able to change the header details. So the user now selects the record and clicks on the View Change button. And the user can choose any line item here and see the goods receipts created for the line item, if any are created. They can also view the details of the selected line item in the display mode, since these line items are of a PO that is uploaded to SAP. So we're going to create and view the line item and display the purchase order line item details. Click on the back button. The user selects any line item and clicks on the Navigate GR button to see the generated receipts in the selected purchase order. And the user won't be able to modify this receipt if it is uploaded in SAP, since upload for receipts has not taken place yet. The user can change this receipt. So the user will navigate all the way back to the main Launchpad and click Create and Display Goods Receipt on the Launchpad. So here the user sees the receipts will be generated, and they can click the Upload button to upload the receipts to SAP and get the receipt document number generated, and the user will see the SAP goods and receipt document numbers on the screen as the final step. So let's synchronize. And that's the end of my process flow. So I'll pass the returns back to Dee Dee.
Okay, thanks, Tony. So before we get into the architecture slide, I have another poll question here for you. And let's bring that up. And the question is, what mobile devices are you going to use to access SAP? Okay, here we go. So please choose. You can choose multiple choices if you'd like. You just want to get an idea of okay, so I'll give you a couple more seconds here, and then we'll close it, and we'll move on with the architecture slide. Okay. So we go to sampling here. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, let's go to the next part of the presentation, the architecture. And Tony, you want to go ahead and talk to this?
Sure. So architecture of offline is built on our industry standard JavaScript, which is based on our WS64 platform. The overall architecture of the offline suite is shown here in this diagram. Basically, there's 4 main components in the offline suite. There's the GuiXT server, there's the offline server, and there's the offline database, and the offline client. Now, the GuiXT server resides on a separate server machine from the system where the offline server will be installed. This is the component that contains the GuiXT scripts and all the business logic for each offline transaction. The GuiXT server provides a centralized mechanism to deploy GuiXT and send updates without having to manage client systems. All the script files are housed in a central repository, and the server also serves as a SAP router. The second component, the offline server, is built on our same JavaScript WS64 platform, and it is housed on the actual client system where the offline transactions will be performed. This system can be either a handheld, such as a Windows-based portable phone, or a laptop computer. The principal components of the offline server are the JavaScript that defines the screens displayed on the mobile or laptop device, and the API file, which we refer to as the synr3.js, but it's an API file where all the offline generic functions are stored. The JavaScript files provide the custom screens for the user devices, whether they're on a laptop or on a handheld device. The script files are usually stored in the designated directory on the system housing the offline server. The API file is the main file for offline. It's this file that contains all the configuration settings for the users, and that's usually set up custom per implementation. The third component is the offline database. The offline database is a scalable SQL-like database that contains all the data downloaded from the SAP ERP system. The database is created in runtime, and when a user starts the offline server, all the code contained in the JavaScript files is read. The attributes associated with the data tables are then read and processed by the offline server. The fourth component, the offline client, can reside either on a laptop or on a mobile handheld device. The client provides the mechanism by which the offline database communicates with the SAP implementation. On a desktop system, offline uses the standard SAP GUI to communicate. On a mobile device, however, offline will utilize GuiXT Mobile as the means of communication. This mobile client differs from the GuiXT Mobile suite in that the mobile client is used for offline. The offline client uses a different UI depending on whether the user is on a laptop or a mobile device. If offline is being used on a laptop, then the standard SAP GUI will display the data. If the user is on a handheld or a mobile device, then GuiXT Mobile is the client that will be used to display data. But in either case, the scripts and the business logic will reside on the GuiXT server, not the laptop on the handheld device. So there's some system requirements that you should be aware of. On a handheld, to install offline on a handheld device, you have to have either a Pocket PC 2000 or 2002 operating system, or a version of Windows Mobile, 2003 on up to, Windows Mobile 6.5.5 or beyond, or a Windows embedded handheld 6.5 operating system. We recommend at least 24 meg of RAM and at least 600 kilobytes of free disk space. On the laptop, you need at least a Windows operating system, Windows 2000, XP, 2003, 2008, some Windows operating system, a processor that is at least a 486 processor or above, and again, we recommend at least 24 megabytes of memory and 600 kilobytes of free disk space. To install offline on a desktop system, you also need Windows 2000, XP, or Windows Server, and a CPU with 486 processor or above, and 600 kilobytes of disk space, and at least 24 megs of RAM. So that's the architecture, and I'm going to pass the controls back to Dee Dee.
Okay, thanks, Tony. So the next, just wanted to give you more information on the patent that was recently approved by our founder and CEO, Thomas Yu. And it gives a lot more detail on the architecture and our product. Skip these full slides since we're running out of time here. But I did want to go through who we are. Again, our founders came from SAP. Thomas Yu is one of our founders and CEO of headquarters here in Foster City. Dr. Gerhard Rodet initiated and developed ABAP in Germany, and SAP. GuiXT has been packaged with SAP since 1998. And again, it's the technology that's provided in there that gives limited functionality. We've built extensions on top of that over our 14 years of history. GuiXT has been SAP certified with NetWeaver portals and embedded in NetWeaver Business Client. And we have over 900 customers worldwide. You'll also see many SAP SEs use our product in pre-sale situations to show simplified SAP screens. Okay, here's our breadth of customers. We do span across multiple industries and functional areas. We can work with any SAP standard transaction. We have customers in manufacturing, utilities, consumer goods, wholesale. Specifically for offline, we found many successes in field service and manufacturing and utilities. And that's about it. You've heard a lot today, specifically, again, what makes us the right choice. This is kind of the history. We started out, again, in 1998, introducing GuiXT and the designer to the market. And since then, we have continued to innovate, as you can see. And our first mobile actual product was in 2004. And since then, we have been, as well, providing additional products, as I showed in the previous slide on all the user touch points. And again, we do have optimization packages as well that include professional services and best practices that have been scaled down and packaged for short implementation times to help you accelerate your success. Last slide here, we will be at Sapphire. Please come by our booth. Booth number 2015. We also have an educational session with Seattle schools. You can talk to them firsthand on their success with our product. And now we'll open it up for some Q&A. And I see there's quite a few here that have asked questions. The first one is there a limit as to how much data can be downloaded? Tony, can you address that?
The offline data can store up to 2 terabytes of data, so that's the limit.
Okay. And what actually resides on the device?
So actually, the only thing that's actually on the device itself is the light SQL database, and the rest of the scripts are all server side.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Next question: how is the data downloaded to the device?
Via the GuiXT server. So, the GuiXT server, you have to be connected via Wi-Fi, and you need to be inside your firewall at that point. And the GuiXT server is communicating to SAP and handling the download for you. And then you disconnect, and that's when you can move into an offline mode with no Wi-Fi connectivity, and the screens that we've created are talking to that light SQL database.
And to add to what Tony said, is the actual download data happens through an RFC call, so you can write a function module which will retrieve the data from the SAP database directly into the offline database.
Thanks, Aparna.
Oh, thank you, Aparna.
Next question here. Can you have SAP drop-down help in the offline mode?
Yes, you could create drop-down menus.
And how about validations?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And again, if you refer back to the demo that I did, you will see that's why I showed scenarios there where, because of the business rules, I was showing different messages, and that is an example of us doing some validation based on the rules that required that.
Okay. And another question here. Do you have to download all the master data every single time?
No.
Okay, yeah, it's done on whatever's changed, right? It's there's some kind of tag that's kept that shows the delta or the change data, and that's what's uploaded or downloaded. Okay. Okay, here's another question. To confirm the solution is not available on BlackBerry device, Windows Mobile is required. Aparna wants to take a stab at this.
So the BlackBerry solution, it's not available for the offline mode. You can use GuiXT in the online mode on the BlackBerry devices. For SAP to work offline, right now, Windows CE is a requirement, or Windows Mobile is a requirement, or you can do it on a laptop. We will be releasing the offline for iPad, the iOS, in Q3 of this year.
Okay, thanks, Aparna. Looks like we have one last question here. How is the conflict handled? What happens when the user downloads the data and makes changes to that offline data? And then you have a second user making changes to the same data online.
Well, basically, we have business logic that will actually notify the user that the information on the server side has been modified, and then we can present the user with a decision as to whether or not they want to overwrite that information or not. So we're all handling that programmatically through the business logic of the script.
And again, to add to that, one of the other ways that our customers have done is when you download the data or when you download the record onto the offline device, whether it's a laptop or a mobile device, you set a user status in SAP which locks the record. So the users cannot make changes to that record in the online mode until the offline user has synchronized the data again. So that is how some of our customers have handled conflict as well.
Okay, thanks, Aparna and Tony. Looks like we're out of time here. I just wanted to thank you all for your time. There are a few more questions that came in. We'll have to get them addressed at a later point. And if you have additional questions in the future, please email us at rfi@guixt.com. For additional information on all our products, please go to www.guixt.com. And don't forget to fill out the survey at the end of the GoToWebinar, as this information will help guide us in future broadcasts. Thank you very much for joining Tony, Aparna, and I, and we hope you can join us in the next webinar in the series on the GuiXT mobile solution. Thanks.
Thank you.